Hey, what's up? Welcome to another live post-fight show here from The Mandatory. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at The Mandatory TKO. We just saw Canelo Alvarez put on another spectacular performance, winning by unanimous decision against Jaime Munguia, also dropping Jaime Munguia for the first time, I believe, in his career, and that happened in the fourth round. And the way the judges had the scorecards, 117, 110, 116, 111, which is how I have scored it, which is what Bryan had scored it as well.
Same
And
exact score, yeah.
115, 112, all going to Canelo by unanimous decision. And by the way, this is an interactive show, so definitely keep the comments coming. We will get to all of your comments in just a moment. But Bryan, great performance by Canelo Alvarez. Is this what you kind of expected when, you knew that Jaime Munguia was going to fight him, like his performance? What were your thoughts on how it all went down?
More or less, yeah, because we talked about this fight leading up, and my whole big thing was just Canelo Alvarez needing to just sit back and sort of counter, not really make this a volume fight, which he did not because his ring IQ is exceptional. Like the early blitz in the beginning, I felt like, okay, I think Canelo Alvarez is going to kick it into gear probably middle rounds, seeing what Jaime Munguia has, but also like just sort of like taking in that volume, but looking for spaces to counter. Like I was tweeting out that I felt like Jaime Munguia would throw more shots, but Canelo Alvarez was more accurate. I think the punch stats reflect that, are going to reflect that when we saw it. The first three rounds, Jaime Munguia, I thought was great. I think he won at least two of those. You can make the case for all three.
I gave him all three, and I believe I gave him the eighth round.
Yeah, I 1,000. No, ninth round,
Yeah, yeah,
because
no.
when he had that blitz, I thought Canelo swept 4 through 8. I think I might have given Canelo one of the first two rounds, but ultimately I had 116, 111. And the way the judges, and for me, that's 8 rounds to 4 if you're like doing the math. Hello to our casual boxing observers, just to break down scoring a little bit here. One judge had 117, 110. So in this fight, that means they gave 9 rounds to Canelo, 3 to Munguia, the 116, 111, the way we had it, 8-4, and then the 115, 112, 7-5. I thought, for all intents and purposes, the fight was scored really, really well, actually.
I didn't have a problem with the scorecards, especially when one of the judges have your scorecards. Like, okay, we kind of saw it the same way there. But I thought Canelo dominated, and I feel like this is the best we've seen Canelo since before he got his hand surgery, since before his layoff. Canelo, he looked like he was well conditioned, because there's obviously always talk about how Canelo sometimes fades in the later rounds. He looked like he was in the best shape that he's been in quite some time. You could hear the power punching. The power seemed legit from Canelo. And there's so much talk about Canelo getting older. Does he still have it? He definitely still has it. And he showed that tonight. So all the haters, all the Canelo haters that are saying that his time is up, I think Canelo put on a great performance against a very dangerous fighter in Jaime Munguia, because Jaime Munguia did definitely have some moments in this fight. The volume was there. I just feel like Canelo was landing more of the power punches, more of the damaging shots, and the timing of everything Canelo was doing in that ring was absolutely perfect. And here's the thing. I know that some people feel like Canelo could have got him out of there at some point if he kept on going to the body, because Jaime seemed hurt to the body. But Jaime Munguia is extremely tough. Like, this is what we want to see from two Mexican boxers. This is why, Mexican fight style is so fun to watch. And I'm not surprised that it went the distance, but it just shows how tough Jaime is. And despite the fact that Jaime Munguia lost, Bryan, I feel like this was a great performance from him, because he still won arguably 3 to 4 rounds against Canelo, depending on however you had it. Or maybe you gave, you had it a little bit closer. If you have your scorecards, please drop them in the comments. But I thought Jaime Munguia, for all purposes, had a really great fight against Canelo, which is not easy to do. Like, he still fought his butt off. And at the same time, I really believe that Jaime's going to get more opportunities from this.
Jaime Munguia is still one of the best super middleweights in the world at this point. Now, there's a large level of people who would probably say, hey, he's not really proven, struggled against Sergey Derevianchenko, who I would tell you, like, that's a legit challenger, right? Like, that's a legit challenge. But ultimately, like, Jaime Munguia, I think he's still going to have a lot of options here. He's still young. Like, this is a loss you could absolutely recover from. You lost to somebody who is still the standard in your division and weight class. Speaking of, we're going to get to David Benavidez in a second, but Jaime Munguia, I think looked better against Canelo Alvarez, to your point, than definitely than John Ryder, even though John Ryder had a couple moments late that people got very excited about. Before Chantel rolls her eyes, I'm going to make this point. But Jaime Munguia, I think, absolutely looked better and took more rounds off of Canelo. Looked better than Jermell Charlo did, and actually,
Yes.
unlike Jermell Charlo, Jermell Charlo also was knocked down in that fight. John Ryder was knocked down in their fight. So it's like Canelo's getting the knockdowns, but he hasn't stopped anybody now since Caleb Plant in November 2011. Let's get to comments in a little bit, but I wanted to ask you first, in terms of where Jaime Munguia should go from here, because he did do an interview after that. I think there are a lot of interesting fights on the table. I don't know if this is something we want to save later, but I feel like we can get out the way now, because I did see, for example, Edgar Berlanga talking shit to Caleb Plant surfaced earlier.
Yeah.
But Edgar Berlanga is saying he might get Canelo next, and I wonder how that's going to stack up with this performance. But Jaime Munguia does have some options here coming out of this.
Yeah, I think Edgar Berlanga is probably his best option. I think that's still a massive fight. Mexico versus Puerto Rico. I think all the storylines for that one could be great. I think the Caleb Plant and Edgar Berlanga fight actually gets made, though. So that's the only issue. I feel like that's a fight that possibly gets made. But also, I mean, this is more of the Canelo end, but Berlanga also wants Canelo Alvarez. And he's being set up to fight Canelo next. So,
in September.
I mean, if I'm Berlanga, am I going to fight Jaime Munguia or Canelo Alvarez if that is my choice? I'm not probably not going to fight. Yeah, I'm not probably going to fight Jaime Munguia. I think Jaime Munguia is going to take some time off, but he's going to be able to get in a really good fight, whatever that may be. But there is a possibility that they still make, Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia fight. So I still think that's the fight to make. I think that would be the best fight for Jaime, because when I take a look at this division, who else are the most interesting names in this division?
Well, we just named a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And David Benavidez, well, he's going to fight at light heavyweight.
He's moving up, yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, if we want to loop him into this conversation, we can. But the list is kind of the list. You know what I mean? There's Canelo Alvarez. You have Caleb Plant, who he's already beat. He's already beat Jaime Munguia now. Edgar Berlanga, I think a lot of people would say it's a level down from at least Caleb Plant and at least from Canelo Alvarez, definitely from David Benavidez. But he's somebody who's sniffing this area as well. David Morrell, I think, who we still want to see him face like real competition, but he clearly profiles as someone who has the tools to give a lot of these guys some problems. It's just a matter of getting him in the ring with somebody who, like, we all know, recognize, and respect, not just like boxing nerds like us and people who may be watching this right now. Hi, how you doing? But yeah, I mean, this weight class, there's a concern that I have just in general. I've told you this, from like 154 through even light heavyweight, there's not a lot of depth in these weight classes. So the top guys are going to have to be fighting each other like two of the top ones did. Like Jaime Munguia, say what you want, this is one of the better super middleweights in the world, probably top 5 at this point if we want to make a top 5 in a weight class. And I thought he had some great moments, and he's going to continue to have some big fights after this, so long as he stacks up wins.
I think an interesting name, and I'm not saying this fight would happen, but if Edgar Berlanga doesn't happen, what if Jaime Munguia fought a Diego Pacheco?
That's who I want Edgar to fight.
Well, yeah, I would love to see them fight, and they kind of been jawing back and forth. They have been on social media, kind of getting at it, but I still think that poses a kind of an interesting fight for not only Diego Pacheco but also for Jaime Munguia, because this doesn't have the biggest crazy. I mean, there's good names, but they're not like the best names. Also, what if Jaime Munguia fought a Charlo brother? Could be an interesting fight
Either
as well.
one.
But
I don't know what Jermell Charlo's gonna do next, like, because he's had some stuff that he's dealing with, and he also, like, in terms of helping his stock against Canelo, he did not do that at all. Jaime Munguia, I feel like, helped his stock a little bit by being competent, and it was just kind of like, it's Canelo, he's still a standard, he's still this, that, and third. But Jaime Munguia, like, had moments. Jermell Charlo did not. I think there are people who would favor Jaime Munguia if he fought either
Mel?
Charlo brother right now. Mel in particular, if he's going to stay at
Mel
168.
didn't even show any of his power in that fight. He didn't let his hands go. I thought it was one of the worst performances of his career.
The
And
worst. Yeah.
Jaime Munguia would definitely be a favorite if you looked at betting lines for that fight easily. Just because at the same time, Canelo didn't wash him in this fight. He didn't just like win every round in this fight. So I thought Jaime Munguia put on a pretty good performance, and he fought till the end. He got dropped and he still kept on going. Let's get to the Canelo portion and then let's get to some comments.
No, I think we should do the reverse because the chat is kind of like now we're getting on fire after a slow start to the evening.
Well, let's actually get some more comments about Canelo because then we can go through them and break down all of the comments.
Because honestly, we're gonna talk about what Canelo, what should happen next to Canelo, and we know what the answer should be, but that's something we'll talk about.
Okay, so can we get to Canelo first and then get to the comments? Because I know people are going to be dropping their comments.
Okay, fine. We'll do it that way. Well, we will get to the
you
comments,
already said
guys. Stay there. But we know this one. Let's do it right now. Canelo Alvarez beats Jaime Munguia, and in terms of what's next for him, we know that there's one option everybody wants, and he was asked about it in a post-fight interview in the ring. David Benavidez, who was there. And obviously that's intentional, who has a fight coming up at light heavyweight in June. And that's the fight that everybody wants, Canelo Alvarez versus Dave Benavidez. We talked about this on the show. And then there's also the reality of boxing being boxing. Canelo Alvarez is noticeably really harping on the point that the money needs to be right for this fight. And I know you want to see David Benavidez, but I'll frame it to you this way. Do you think this is actually going to be the next fight that Canelo Alvarez has? Or is this more like a 2025 thing? Because that's kind of where I think this is going to go.
This fight will not happen next. If this fight was going to happen, I think Canelo would have taken it before Jaime Munguia because David Benavidez was willing to take this fight with Canelo Alvarez. Now, here's the thing. I think Canelo Alvarez will fight his mandatory in Edgar Berlanga because I feel like that's an easy win. And I feel like Edgar Berlanga, even though he looked really good in his last performance, if Canelo fights like this, I think Edgar Berlanga might get stopped within 6 to 7 rounds.
Oh, shit. Oh.
Because I think that's how good Canelo Alvarez looked. And I think Jaime Munguia is a little bit more polished than Edgar Berlanga, even though, I thought his last fight was pretty decent from Edgar Berlanga, probably his best performance of his career. But I would still take Canelo on that fight. And I think the storylines for that would be great as well, because it's also Mexico versus Puerto Rico. And if you heard Canelo talk in the post-fight interview, he said the money has to be right, which makes me also believe that Canelo's thinking about the end of his career.
And also that he might not be crazy about the idea of fighting David Benavidez right now.
Yeah, but also he's thinking about making the most money before he retires, which is why he's asking for a big purse, right? Because this could possibly be the last fight that Canelo Alvarez fights. And if it's going to be his last fight, he's going to want it to be a moneymaker. And let's get to some of the comments because actually you should probably answer that as well.
Yeah.
But Mateo had a pretty good comment. And I know you're going to mention this as well, because this has been rumored. Canelo Alvarez fighting David Morrell. That's been rumored as well to be a part of one of the 3 fights. So he just fought Jaime Munguia. They're possibly saying Edgar Berlanga is next and then David Morrell. That's kind of been the rumor.
Yeah. Yes, and Mateo's right. The people do need Canelo versus Dave Benavidez. I would have put my money on it happening next. I hope it does. That's the fight that I want to see the most. And I've been saying up here for close to a year now at this point. I think Dave Benavidez actually wins that fight. Even with the way that Canelo looks today, I think David Benavidez, he has more stamina than Jaime Munguia. Like the volume that Jaime Munguia displayed early, I didn't think was sustainable for him because he has too many defensive holes that Canelo Alvarez could pick apart, which is what we talked about all week, which is exactly how this fight played out. With David Benavidez, I think it's a little bit of a different equation because he has volume on volume. He has more speed. He has a lot of power, as we know. I think the power could be sort of frustrating to try to withhold or withstand, rather, if you're Canelo Alvarez. And I think with David Benavidez, like that's the fight that I want to see next. I think because you make the point about like the money has to be right. I think it's a combination of, and this is kind of what Floyd Mayweather was doing toward the end. It's a combination of money has to be right and also right opponent. As in, if the fighter, there's like a tax if you're going to fight Dave Benavidez. Like, I need even more money to do that because that's not as safe of an opponent as Jaime Munguia is, or as Jamel Charlo is, or as Edgar Berlanga potentially is. Even though I think he probably makes more money fighting Benavidez than either of those guys, it's also like he's more of a risk. So there's a tax that comes on top of that. And I think that's sort of what they're gonna have to figure out because Canelo Alvarez might not feel like he needs that fight, and maybe he doesn't because he's fought everybody at this point. But that's the one fight out there that I want to see the most. Edgar Berlanga is probably second just because Mexico, Puerto Rico. But even as a Puerto Rican, I don't know if Edgar Berlanga has a shot.
So going back to the whole David Benavidez thing, because I don't think that fight is going to happen. I don't think we're going to get it this year. We can talk about it all we want, but I think Canelo knows in his mind what he wants to do. And here's the difference, though. We know that it's not a safe fight in year of 2024. I think it's
Yes.
more of an unsafe fight next year.
Yes.
So
It gets
the
riskier as he gets
longer
older. Yes.
the longer Canelo waits to make that fight, I think it's worse for him. But the longer that he waits to make that fight, that's when I think that we're not going to get it at all.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all because that this is what tends to happen, and this is why it was shocking that we actually got Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. We got it a little late, but I do feel like, given how the fight went, we might have gotten that same result if it happened earlier. Probably not the same way because guys can make welterweight a little bit easier when they're younger, but at the same time, it's like they got older before that, and we were talking about that fight for years. This is a fight potentially with Dave Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. You can't afford to milk it for that long because the age difference is so significant. Canelo Alvarez, basically, by the time he steps back in the ring, will be 34 years old because he's going to be 34 in July, and also he turned pro in 2005 as a teenager. So we're talking about mid 60 at 65 pro fights or something along those lines.
And then there's also the factor of the size. David Benavidez being an absolute, listen, they don't call him the monster for anything. He's a monster in the ring. Like Canelo Alvarez would look tiny next to him, regardless of how he hydrates after the fight. So I think that fight is just one of those fights that we're dreaming about that we might not get. But hey, like, what was Canelo asking for? 200 million? I don't know if he was joking around when he said that, essentially, but that's like a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
Like 200 million. It's like, that's not going to happen, Canelo. You know what I mean?
Whatever it is, he's not asking for that much to fight Edgar Berlanga or somebody like that. I promise.
Yeah.
Let's get to some comments because we got a lot of good ones. Let's go from the beginning. IMPK13, who is usually first. So salute to IMPK13, friend of the show. Hi, y'all. Jaime was in it until the knockdown, which is in round 4. Canelo looked great. Let's see Alvarez versus Benavidez. Yes, sir. I mean, were you surprised at the knockdown? Actually, incidentally,
yeah, I was. I didn't expect that because I feel like we haven't seen that type of power from Canelo for a little while now. Like you could hear the power shots, you could hear the power to the body, and I was like, oh, it's been a while since I've heard Canelo do that. So I was definitely surprised at that knockdown. I don't know if you were, but
similar comment here from Jay. I was excited until Canelo knocked Munguia down. I think he's probably don't got spell check on his phone. It's annoying. Spell check's annoying, so I got you, bro. I understand. Anthony Beck says, great to see y'all back on. Thank you for tuning in. Also, on the knockdown point, real quick, I was a little surprised, but also as I kept watching the fight, Jaime Munguia kept making this mistake of like throwing combos and kind of just staying there. So Canelo Alvarez would just time him, like he would just come back and counter, and Jaime Munguia will also dip his head too low, so that Canelo Alvarez would just, all right, I'm gonna just throw this uppercut at your head. I'm gonna do it over and over because you keep bringing your head to this location after you throw counters, particularly ending with the right hand. So, all right, I'm going to hit you with a right uppercut. And that started wearing on him as the fight progressed to the point where I thought he was actually going to get another knockdown. Let's go to Ryan Hong. Benavidez stops Canelo. Do you think he stops Canelo?
Depends when they have that fight. It depends. If they have it like next year or the year after, I think there's a possibility. But I also think that it'll be hard for David Benavidez to win on the cards unless he like dominates. unless he uses his sides, cuts off the ring really well, especially like where that fight's going to be, probably on the West Coast, probably in Vegas, because it
Probably
would make the most
Vegas.
sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you think? Would you take David Benavidez to stop Canelo Alvarez?
No. I would take it by decision. Um I'd be tempted to see like what a majority or split decision would pay.
I think if I was betting on Canelo, I would take it by decision, and if I was betting on Benavidez, I would take it by stoppage.
I
And I think the odds would be crazy for that. But I think
think
that
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
that's how I would go, because I think Canelo is difficult to beat on the cards, but I think David Benavidez, his power, the power and just like how he fights and how he's aggressive, and he is good defensively as well. I think it would pose a lot of problems for someone like Canelo. Let's go to our guy XL. It's been a minute since you joined us, XL. Thanks for rocking with the show, though. He said, "Yo, just saying what's up. Checking out the show with my lady. The fight was good. What do you guys think is next for Munguia?" We did that. By the way, Berlanga is tripping, and Benavidez is a weight bully. Yeah, I
We
mean,
we we should honestly make a pound for pound weight bully list because people have been commenting on our shows like about this person's a weight bully, this person's a weight bully, and it's like you kind of have like a good amount of these in boxing now because you don't have same day weigh-ins and you haven't forever. I think they should have same day weigh-ins, like make the weight and then rehydrate before the fight, not the next day. So can y'all there you go, XL. Can y'all speak on
weight
weight
bully.
bullying? Yes. Go ahead if you want to break it down.
For me on weight bullying, I think we should just stay tuned and we'll make a list. We'll make a top 10 list and we'll put it out sometime next week or sometime this month. But there definitely are weight bullies, especially when they rehydrate.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like Ryan Garcia, like, there's so much controversy with that right now, because he tested positive for PEDs.
Yeah, we
But
may talk about this soon, by the way.
he was being a weight bully. He was like, they were saying he was 180 pounds.
What the fuck? I haven't heard that number.
Yeah, I saw a
I
tweet. I saw a tweet saying that Ryan Garcia was 180 pounds in that fight,
well, so
rehydrated.
we were talking about this fight obviously a bunch, and the week of there was photos that Ryan Garcia noticeably was shirtless the entire week. We're gonna get back to Canelo and David Benavidez and others in a second at super middleweight, but real quick, Ryan Garcia. A lot of people were like, "Hey, he looks big, like jacked," and you sort of saw it. Like he looked like he was in the 160s days before the weigh-in. And it's like he's not like people were like he's not gonna make weight. And I was like, yeah, I don't think he is either, unless he does some like unsafe super sauna MMA shit, because the MMA weight cutting is a big issue as well.
Mhm.
And he was 3 pounds over, and yeah, it's a whole mess. Weight bullying, for people who don't know, is basically the concept of guys in certain weight classes where, and Canelo was actually accused of this a lot back in the day, where you fight at a weight class, let's use 168 as an example, but you walk around at like 200 pounds and you basically drop all the way down to make 168 and then rehydrate back up to like 200 pounds by the time you fight.
And hey, Devin Haney's been known to do that too.
Which is funny because you make fun of him for not having power.
Well,
Even
yeah,
with that.
he's got pillow fists.
Regis Prograis said, like, oh, nobody said anything about Devin Haney when he fought against me in terms of the weight bullying. And I'll say this, like, even though I don't think it was going to make a difference given how the fight went,
Yeah.
but the size difference was absolutely there between him and we saw a size difference. I felt like Jaime Munguia was bigger than Canelo Alvarez, but we don't have the rehydration, like,
No,
actual
not at
weight.
all. And Canelo's fought, taller dudes, bigger dudes before. Mateo, friend of the show, this will always be the narrative every time Canelo fights. Yes, he needs to fight David Benavidez.
Yes.
Let's go to my boy Anthony Beck. Anthony, thanks for rocking with us. Canelo was methodical with this fight, took an early flurry from Munguia, but like you said, Munguia's stamina wasn't sustainable, and Canelo picked him apart. Canelo's IQ it's unbelievable.
Elite.
So, I mean, I felt like we kind of knew that he would essentially pick him apart, and that's why he was the perfect opponent for Canelo when you think about experience. But I do think Jaime Munguia is not going to keep his head on the line anymore. Like, he's going to, move his head a little bit more. He's not going to be so flat-footed. Like, he'll learn from this experience fighting from someone like Canelo.
Hopefully.
And you could just tell, like, when Canelo was in his corner, he just knew his IQ was on it. Like he just knew what he was doing in that ring, and it was just so impressive. All right, let's get to some more comments here.
Edgar Berlanga also just like, and this is per Michael Benson. I think Edgar Berlanga actually tweeted this that yeah, he's expecting to fight Canelo Alvarez. He told this to Caleb Plant. Like Caleb Plant was like, "I'll fight you." That exchange was also hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Edgar Berlanga is probably the betting favorite to get this fight in September.
1492 Masaya. This is what I'm trying to say. He said Ginger trying to cash out with the Benavidez fight. I do think Canelo's trying to cash out with this Benavidez fight. Because he knows, because even watching, if you guys saw those little things that DAZN did before the fight between Canelo and Munguia, Canelo talked about like him being at the latter end of his career, and he's going to be sad when he retires one day. So it's in his mind. And God, I trust. Thank you for joining the show tonight. The reach of Benavidez and power will be too much at this age for Canelo.
The size too.
Yes.
Speaking of guys who have been accused of weight bullying, Benavidez is going to be massive when they fight, if they fight. The exchange was basically, it was like in that area, I guess, but Edgar Berlanga and Caleb Plant, if you guys haven't seen it, there's a video of them talking shit to each other where it was funny because Edgar Berlanga goes up to him and they're talking shit to each other, and he's telling Caleb Plant like, "Yo, nah, I'll fight you after I fight Canelo in September." And by the way, if you have super chats, we will, I don't know what YouTube is doing right now because they should be like loaded, but I'm gonna fix that right now as I'm making this point. But the point is that he goes up to Caleb Plant, says, "I'm gonna knock you out." Caleb Plant's like, "No, you're not," which is funny. And then he tells Caleb Plant, "Take the glasses off," called him the P word, and then Caleb Plant's like, "For what?" Caleb Plant wants to fight Jamal Charlo, by the way.
I think that's the fight that I want to see more than him and Edgar Berlanga, because they don't like each other, right? This is something that's been brewing for quite some time. At one point, I thought there was like a fight in the crowd. Because they also got into it during another fight, did they not? I forget what fight that was. Was it a Regis Prograis fight? When he fought Zorrilla? There was something that happened in that fight.
He fought Zorrilla last year. This was the first of the not great Regis Prograis performances that we saw recently. But yes, it was around that time.
Yeah, and I remember thinking Caleb Plant needs to get back in the ring. His last performance was really solid. So I think for Plant, I think it's a Charlo brother. He hates them both. So I think that would definitely be something for, and XL asked that question.
I don't know why the super chat thing, by the way, following up on that, I don't know why it says like, because the video is like the super chats are supposed to be activated for all of them. And it says that they are here. So I don't know what's going on, but if you have a way to donate to the channel, do that. You could also email the show, which we drop on some of our videos. I actually post that here. If you want to send us some bread, you could do it through there too. We'll figure it out. But yeah, the donation should be working. I don't know what's going on here. Big surge. Munguia came in with an excellent plan, but his natural instincts got him hurt. Sergio Mora, who I thought did a very good job on the broadcast, also talked about some of this too. He did a great job of like really harping on the body punching that was breaking down Jaime Munguia, which I don't think a lot of commentators would have picked that up. Great win for Canelo and Mexico. Translator forgot to mention that Munguia said he hurt his arm around rounds 3 and 4, which 3 was maybe Jaime Munguia's best round, and 4 was
Canelo knocked him down.
And 4 was when he caught the knockdown. I don't know why that happens on the screen, but yes, very, very good comment.
Let's stay with Big Surge. I had Munguia by decision, but I knew Canelo's power, great counterattacks from Canelo, and he surprised me with his conditioning. I have Canelo beating Benavidez by stoppage to the body, hopefully next year. You know what? I haven't heard anyone say that. You know what's crazy is that I know obviously Canelo is a legend, right? He's a GOAT in the game, obviously on the pound for pound list. But every time someone talks about Canelo and Benavidez, I never hear anyone say they're taking Canelo in that fight, which
Not
is
anymore.
crazy.
I did in the beginning, less so after David Benavidez beat Demetrius Andrade, and Yeah, less so around Caleb Plant time because Caleb Plant, we were talking about like, wait, this is a pay-per-view? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because Dave Benavidez hadn't been pushed to that degree. So it's like, all right, they're giving him the pay-per-view shot now. And that turned out to be a pretty big fight.
That was arguably the biggest fight of the year when it happened. I remember because I didn't get to watch it live and I was
You mean like
pissed.
before all the other fights ended up happening?
Yeah,
Okay, at
yeah.
that okay,
That
all
at
right.
that point, that was like the
Because I was
biggest
like,
fight of
Tank
the
and
year.
Ryan was like shortly after that.
Yeah, but still, like if you're
But at
more
that
of a
point,
nerd
yeah, it's
fight,
a big
yeah, if
fight.
you're more of a nerd fight, like I think that's more of a nerd fight because like even though we were excited about Tank and Ryan, like the Benavidez Caleb Plant fight was really really good. The card was good as well.
Caleb Plant would also still right now beat some of these dudes we're probably talking about. Like Caleb Plant versus Jaime Munguia is a legitimate interesting fight. Caleb Plant versus Edgar Berlanga is a legitimately interesting fight. David Morrell. I think Caleb Plant would beat like some of these guys, maybe. I think he might be the betting favorite against at least two of them.
Yeah, for sure. We'll read this weight bullying comment since everyone's really excited about this. I remember Canelo weighing in at 147 for the Mayweather fight, and then he fought at 172. So he's done the weight bully thing as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was Miguel Cotto. That was the famous one. They had like a catch weight 155. Miguel Cotto rehydrated to like 160, and Canelo was like almost 190.
yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, but there's an art to it. Like if you can rehydrate like that, that's how you want to rehydrate. Like if I was a boxer, I'd want to be a weight bully. On fight night,
I
hell
would
yeah.
not. I wouldn't.
I would want to be a weight bully. I would totally want to be a weight bully.
I
Because if
wouldn't.
you rehydrate properly, if you because you're supposed to put on like at least like 15 to 20 pounds after.
I'm not doing that.
Some dudes come in like crazy. I don't know what they do to get that weight back, but it's pretty crazy. Jalen Davis, thank you for rocking with the show tonight on the post-fight show. I wish Benavidez jumped in the ring. Yes.
Mm,
Yes. I don't know if he probably would have been allowed to do that.
yeah, I'm sure. Come on.
The classic Jesus comment, nobody cares. Jesus, thank you for joining the show. Jesus usually has some of the funniest comments every time we do a live show.
Yeah,
So big shout out to him.
hates every boxer who's a parent. Do you hate all Mexican boxers, Jesus? What's going on, bro?
I
Because you
thought
did
he liked Mexican boxers.
like what's happening? Like yeah, Anthony, me neither. I didn't expect Chantel to say that she'd be a weight bully either.
I would try
I
to
would
be.
not because I wouldn't want to cut 20, 15. For me, it's like I'm not cutting more than 10 or 12 pounds. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
For me, I'd be fighting at like lightweight, basically 135. If I wanted the weight bully, I'd have to drop down to like featherweight. I'm not doing that.
yeah, no, that'd be you would be crazy at featherweight though. you would be knocking out dudes at featherweight. I'm just saying, okay? Like you might want to think about that. Like if you was trying to cut weight. Think about you at featherweight, yo. Think about you at featherweight.
I'm 145 right now.
Yeah.
And I feel fantastic, right? Like I feel great. I don't want 126. I haven't been 126 since like I was on JV my freshman year, maybe in basketball.
If I had to cut, like even if I cut like 10 pounds, that'd make me at minimum weight. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I'd be so there'd be no point. So maybe I'd have to like bulk up or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fight at a different weight class. But yeah, cutting that type of weight would be difficult, but just being a weight bully, like putting on that much weight and dominating like that would be sick. Okay, so let's go to XL because I think this is kind of an interesting comment. What do you guys think Plant has to do to get a rematch with Canelo? And also height matters when it comes to weight bullying. Okay, XL, I didn't know you knew I was short, but if I was fighting at 105, they'd be short too.
You're taller than Sinisa Estrada, I think. How tall is she?
I've seen Sinisa Estrada. She's probably, I think me and her are the same height actually.
Okay, there you go, guys. That's the fight. Now that Sinisa Estrada has run out of opponents.
Hey, listen, I wouldn't cheat. This is messed up, okay? Shantelle would be winning all of her fights by knockout and get accused of using PEDs. I wouldn't cheat like Ryan, but we'll also do another segment on that coming up this week. Let's get over to another
let's answer that Caleb Plant comment that we threw up that we just got over. What do you guys think Caleb Plant's do to get the rematch with Canelo Alvarez? Honestly, win against some of the guys we're talking about, like Charlo. If he beats Jaime Munguia, if he beats Edgar Berlanga, if he beats David Morrell and they put him in the ring with him. Like David Morrell has, I believe, the WBA regular title. Because boxing is boxing, and the WBA has a super champion and a regular champion. The WBO wants to do that now. It's just ridiculous.
WBO better not do that. I hate it. I can't, and I don't like explaining it to people either.
Yeah, me neither. I don't mind. I don't mind 4 world champions in a weight class, given the volume of boxers there are. But I don't think we need it. Like it, because in MMA there's not just 4 heavyweight champions. It's just each promotion has one. But you can't do that in boxing either, because imagine if it's like fucking wrestling where it's like, oh, the top ranked heavyweight champion is going to defend his title. And then you have the Matchroom Boxing heavyweight champion. Like now you're just making it Raw and SmackDown.
I wish they were under one sanctioning body, everybody.
Yeah.
Like one sanction, that would make it so much easier. Just one sanctioning body. But the thing about it is so many people want money in this game.
Fighters won't do that because then they won't get paid as much. That's why, see, the UFC trade-off is they make the better fights or the more interesting, compelling matchups because everyone has to fight each other because you're in the UFC umbrella. The trade-off is they don't make shit compared to like the high-level boxers, basically.
The difference, though, also I think could be is that the boxers could have a union in doing something like that, right? Yeah. Which they definitely need, because once their career is over, because there is a lot of tomato cans, right? And these are the guys that put their lives on the line. But also it's like, I think at some point boxers should have a union, and they don't have one. So I think that's a way that could happen, but I don't ever see there only being one sanctioning body in boxing. We've been watching boxing for years. It's a classic sport, and that's just probably not going to happen. So it's going to be confusing for a little while for the casual fans.
All right, let's do a couple more comments, then we get out of here because we're already at 37. We appreciate everybody joining us. We got a lot of people on Twitter also. There's 184 total watching the stream right now. A bunch on YouTube, a bunch on Twitter. So we appreciate that. Off topic here. This is a pretty interesting one. IMPK, how is better BF so tough in the ring but so fragile out of it? This one's a bummer. So if you don't know, Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, supposed to fight undisputed light heavyweight championship in June. Artur Beterbiev now has a knee injury, a meniscus injury apparently. So maybe that happens later this year. But
Dmitry and he's older too. Like, is he 40 now? So now
just about, yeah.
So I think going into that fight, I was taking Beterbiev because he's also skilled. Everyone always talks about his power, but he's gotten better every time he's fought. But now with that injury and him having to get surgery, I don't know. He's older. He's going to take him a little bit more time to recover, I feel like.
Dmitry Bivol does have a new challenger also. And I'm trying to get the name, but he is ranked number 14 by the IBF. So they did find somebody in the top 15 who could take this fight, and he just fought a couple weeks ago. So let's see. And this is still going to be on the Queensberry Matchroom 5 versus 5, which is going to happen on June 1st. And the replacement opponent is, come on, Michael Benson. I know you tweeted it out at some point. It's somebody who's going to get their ass whooped by Dmitry Bivol. All right, like that's what I can tell you.
I agree, but I'm glad at the same. Who did you say number 13?
14.
Okay, I don't know. I'm trying to look for it as well.
Remember,
Malik Zainad. Zainad, is that who he's
22-0 with 16 knockouts, and also, I'll remind people, Tyson Fury, I think when he fought Derek Chisora for the heavyweight title not that long ago, Derek Chisora was also ranked 14th by the WBC or something like that. So that's the level of opposition we're perhaps looking at here.
All right, let's take we'll take one from Jesus. Saw highlights, patty cake punches, Munguia. And listen, Jesus answered if he hates Mexican boxers. And this is what he said. Are these the ones that you like? Fernando Vargas, one
Salvador
of my favorite
Sanchez,
boxers.
Marquez, not fake. No.
Well, they asked Canelo.
The only bigger hater than our boy Jesus right now on planet Earth is Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, and also joining him would be Bryan.
Yeah.
Joining him would be
not
Bryan.
Not a great guy at all. Not a great guy at all.
Okay, so there was actually Anthony Beck just posted this. It might need Shakur versus Ryan. I saw a tweet saying that Tank is interested in fighting Shakur Stevenson. So if that fight happens, that one is a blockbuster fight. Yes. And I do want to see how Shakur Stevenson fights that fight, because I still believe Tank's the best, lightweight, not in the world. You know what I mean?
I wonder because Shakur is the better defensive fighter, but Gervonta Davis is actually a really good counterpuncher, and also he does not respect Shakur Stevenson's power at all.
No.
So I, oh my god, I hope that fight happens. Like I
Yeah.
really hope it happens. 'Cause I don't know which way I'd go. I'd probably lean Tank because of the power. Because I feel like the power gap is more significant than the defensive counterpunching gap, even though Shakur Stevenson is excellent at that. Gervonta Davis is actually good at that, and he's demonstrated that more than once. So
And I also think people always only talk about Tank's power, but he's actually really skilled. He has a high IQ and he kind of reels you in to set you up to knock you out. And he sets those traps really, really well. So that's a fight I think would be good for Shakur as well because I thought he was retiring. All right, one more comment. One more comment, Brian, and I'll let you pick the comment that we're going to read.
um I want like a really good comment going out the door here. Come on. We are getting some Tank and Stevenson thoughts though. IMPK says it could be a snooze fest.
It could be.
Jalen Davis said that's true. If Shakur Stevenson takes control of that fight, it could be. Jalen Davis Tank easily by knockout. I think a lot of people are gonna bet it that way. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are gonna take Tank by knockout.
And
How,
if
how
Tank
would you
was to
set the
knock
line
out,
for that fight?
I don't think it would be like a massive line for Tank. I think Tank would be the favorite.
I think so too because of the power.
And
But I feel
yeah.
like it'll be close, like minus 130 to plus 120, something like that.
Yeah, I also think Shakur could run around the ring all day in that fight, right? Because the Tank doesn't throw a lot of punches either, but he's really accurate, and
Yeah.
it's about accuracy and timing. But he's not going to overwhelm you with punches. So I could see Shakur Stevenson having a fight like how he did with Nakatila.
Oh boy.
It could be that type of fight.
Okay.
Which I don't want. I wouldn't want it to be, but I actually agree that Shakur could make that an extremely boring fight. He would be like Jermaine Ortiz against Teofimo Lopez.
He does
That's
have the height and reach advantages in that fight too. It's worth noting.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Well, we do want to let you guys know that we will be doing a post-fight show for In a Way in Neri, which
Oh
will
god.
be coming up in a couple of days. It's going to be hella early on the East Coast. We're hearing word that it's going to be around 7:30, the fight, which would be 4:30 on the West Coast here, Pacific time. So the post-fight show would be right after, hella early in the morning. Grab your coffees, especially if you're here on the West Coast. And remember that we will be with you live. So we'll be hanging out with you after that fight as well. Any final thoughts, Brian, before we get up out of here?
Great performance by Canelo Alvarez. He's still that dude at super middleweight, but the streets want Dave Benavidez next. And if it's Edgar Berlanga, then unfortunately I'm probably gonna have to pick against my Puerto Rican brother.
I don't think Edgar is ready for Canelo after what we just saw. And I think Canelo wants to finish off a year in style. Thank you guys so much for rocking with us on our post fight show. We do appreciate you. If you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, please do follow us on our social media channels. We're at TheMandatory TKO, and we'll be back with another post fight show coming up after Naoya Inoue and Luis Nery square off. So make sure to keep it locked here on The Mandatory, and we'll see you in a couple of days.